Hey YouTube, so I'm at a different spot. I'm over in Greenville, and so I was gonna do this video on Thursday and tell you guys what I've learned. So maybe some people would be concerned by this, but I think it's a good thing. Basically, the e-bike industry's been the Wild West when it comes to Chinese manufacturers making whatever they want. Now, you can think that there's some American companies making bikes that are cheap, but there really isn't. Most of them are made by a couple of factories in China, and the problem is that there's no testing performed. Bikes made and sold in America usually have a voluntary testing standard set forth, and there's a couple of regs for it. For adult bikes. For youth bikes, there's laws concerning youth bikes. So far, I haven't seen that many bikes strictly designed for young riders, but the upcoming rules that are going to go into place are going to establish some standards for all e-bikes and some tough standards for bikes designed for children. Which is a good thing. I think children need to be regulated, bikes need to be regulated more so than adult bikes. If we get on a bike, we know there's risk, but sometimes children don't even know there is a risk to riding an e-bike. So you can bet that if it's designed strictly for a child, that they're not going to go much more than 6-7 miles an hour under assistance. And there is a couple of bike companies out there right now that primarily deal in 20-inch wheeled bikes. They're going to have a hard case proving that they're not designed for not designed for children. They're designed for adults, because they're not experts. The people who are going to make these decisions aren't experts. They're just people that have statistics to go by and need to quell some of those statistics to more reasonable manner. Now, that being said, if a bike is not designed for a child or could be ridden by a child, it's going to be regulated far more than one that's designed for an adult, and they are looking at the rules. The problem is there's too many e-bikes out there that have had no safety testing at all. They have no idea how many pounds it takes to break the handlebar, the stem, all kinds of other things, seat post, frame, all that. Now Trek specialized, maybe Electric is now getting into their own testing. They're starting to test their bikes, and that's why you've seen that voluntary recall of the 3.0 because of the brakes. They started doing testing. So they're doing their testing, and now they're finding out that those brakes didn't meet the standards that they set forth. And that's the problem, is there is no standards for e-bikes right now. The government has not gotten involved. There is some standards as to speed, what class of what bike is, but now they're saying they need to get involved. There is no standard for how fast a bike can go when pedaling. Here comes another group. So now you've got bikes that you can pedal 35 miles an hour, and that's going to change. I guarantee you they're going to bring it down to a 20 mile per hour standard all the way across the board, and that's the way it looks. And the information I got was that's what they're thinking, is they're going to leave the 20 mile an hour standard in place, but how fast you can pedal with assistance is going to be the question, is where they cut it off. A lot of the manufacturers now have already put the 20 mile per hour with throttle only in place. This bike won't even go 20 miles an hour with any kind of assistance, about 19.2, and it cuts it off. So they're way under, they're almost a mile per hour under what it can do. So it just cuts all assistance after you get to that point. So the braking problems are, there is no standard for e-bikes because they tend to weigh more than a regular bike, and some of these companies just make an assumption that weight has nothing to do with its brakes capability. It's more about just putting something on that makes the bike stop in what they consider a normal distance. Well, I'm going to tell you, when I first got my electric, I was thinking, wow, this thing takes forever to stop. Now, that isn't so anymore, but I had to put some money into it. I bought a set of calipers, 180 millimeter calipers, changed the brake pad composition, and put new cables on it. The new cables were the biggest change. It begins to feel more like a hydraulic brake instead of a mush that you get when you pull the levers on your electrics, and these cheap cable actuated calipers. A lot of you have had problems with them keeping them adjusted right. The reason is that that caliper that they put is one-sided on these cable actuated brakes. So when you pull your brake, you're actually only moving one brake pad, and you're pushing the rotor towards the other brake pad. So no matter what you do, eventually that rotor starts to warp and bend, and you end up with brakes that don't work worth a crap, or rub all the time, or make noise all the time. And that's why hydraulics in this case are superior, because they have transferred fluid to both pistons, and they push both pads down equally onto the rotor, and the rotor stays true. And there's, in this trek, it's almost got 3,000 miles on it. It's got the original pads, and I've not adjusted the brakes. I can't say that with my electric. I almost have to adjust them every time I use the darn thing. And it's not that I don't know what I'm doing, it's just the way they are. And even with the better quality rotors, they still deflect enough that it causes a problem eventually. So that being said, there is some changes coming. If you want to know what they need to test to certify an e-bike, there is a list on that link I provided that tells you what should be tested. The question is now they have to develop standards for those items that need to be tested. Wow, the sun just got bright all of a sudden. So I think we can count that 20 miles per hour is going to be the limit of what an e-bike can do. There is going to be some bikes that they're not going to consider e-bikes anymore. They're going to consider them electric motorcycles. Just because you have a pedal doesn't mean you're a bicycle, is what they're going to probably decide. They're going to decide by how much power it has and how fast it goes, and the safety things on it. Lights are not considered a necessity on them, but almost every e-bike I've seen lately comes with lights, because they're trying to develop it into what people use to commute short distances home, back and forth to work. I think I've talked long enough. I probably should get back home. The trails here in Greenville are all screwed up. They're repaving them all, so I came out here, and then I'm going to go back home and ride back up the trail towards Lowell, and get a few more miles in. So that's what I've gleaned from the information that they provided me, that they're leaning towards limiting all e-bikes to a top speed of 20 miles an hour. If you can go faster than that, you're not going to be regulated off the trail. You're just going to be, they're going to just tell you you can't ride on this trail, or you have to ride over here, or you have to use your bike on these kinds of trails, but they're not going to tell you what you can ride. I'm sure there's still going to be e-bikes out there that don't make the standards right away, but they're going to be regulated out of existence. what it's basically saying is you are going to test your bike for these safety items, and there's like 10 of them. Batteries will be UL tested before they're allowed to come into the country, and accessories and stuff that are mounted on an e-bike will be tested to some level or not. It's a voluntary standard, but what they will do make this an involuntary standard if the industry doesn't comply. So that being said, some good news for most of you, unless you have kids that ride an e-bike. And one final word. If you buy your kid a bike that can go out there and he can kill himself on doing ridiculous stunts and stupid stuff, and there's an age limit set in your state to what age an e-bike can be ridden by, what level, whatever. There is some states that have those regulations, and he goes out and gets on your bike, which is a class 3, goes out and tries to jump something and kills himself, you need to watch out, because look at Michigan. Michigan's going after parents for the kids now. Now, we just had a mother and father just went to prison for, I don't even remember how many years, but it was a long time. And a son that committed the heinous school shootings and killed a bunch of people, and his parents paid for it too. He's in prison for the rest of his life, and his parents are in, I think, for 15 to 20 years. And they're going after people to leave their guns unlocked too now. If the kid gets hold of it and commits a crime, you're just as responsible as he is. And they're getting pretty successful in prosecuting people. So if you think that you're safe, you'd let your kid ride something that he's not legally supposed to be riding, and he commits something, gets killed, gets hurt, serious injury, don't expect them not to come after you. Have a great day.